Yeah, everyone, you're welcome. We did it again. We recorded a podcast on Thursday afternoon. We prepared to go live our lives, and then the Eagles made a move.
Well, we are living our lives because when the Eagles make a move, we spring into action. Got a little emergency podcast. We did talk at length about Sean Mannion in the previous podcast, so I don't think it's completely obsolete. People can still watch that and learn about Sean Mannion and then watch this one.
Yeah, you get double the amount of podcasts on this Thursday. This is the Eagle Eye podcast, by the way, brought to you by Nissan, Reuben Frank, and Dave Zangaro. Like Rube mentioned, this is an emergency Eagle Eye podcast. Sound the alarms, put out the bat signals. Here we are. The Eagles have an offensive coordinator.
We need like a jingle, like an emergency podcast jingle.
I like that.
You know, something we get. I'm going to work on that. Get a little jingle for when we do an emergency pod. You know what's so great about these podcasts? Like, they're free. Like, people can just watch us do a pod. It's not like you go to the movies, you go to a concert, you have to pay for it. You get this entertainment, it doesn't cost you anything. I just realized that.
For now, we'll see.
We might start charging.
Yeah. No, we won't. Yeah. So Sean Mannion, new offensive coordinator. The Eagles announced it themselves. What was that, like 5:30-ish?
Yeah.
Around there. 33 years old, was the quarterback's coach in Green Bay this last season. Before that was an offensive assistant in Green Bay. Just 2 years of coaching experience before becoming an offensive coordinator. That is a rapid rise.
It really is. And it's a great opportunity for him. We talked on the last pod about all the remaining realistic candidates, and I think we both agreed that he made the most sense. He was the most attractive candidate. There's some guys who I think would have been really disappointing. He's not one of them. And it's a risk when you hire somebody this young and this inexperienced. It's also kind of like Jeffrey Lurie's, it's in his DNA. He likes inventing guys. He likes finding young guys and watching them grow and develop. And he'll have a chance to do that. And, Matt LaFleur speaks extremely highly of him, who he coached with for the last 2 years. Really, everybody that I've seen talk about him has spoken incredibly highly of him. Now, I guess that's kind of normal, but yeah, you just really like what they have to say about his energy, his inventiveness, his quick mind. You never know how it's going to go till we see it in action, and we won't know how he is as a play caller until the season starts, because you don't get a sense of that in preseason games or in training camp. You get a sense of what the offense looks like, but it's not anything I think there's any easy way to predict how someone will be at this. But he seems to have all the requisite elements to have a chance to do a good job.
Yeah. And when's the last time anyone hired a quarterback's coach from Green Bay, right? That doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's true. He's got all the references in the world. He just doesn't have the experience.
Yeah. And that's why, I view this one, it's a big risk, big reward type of move. It is. It's now you can argue that this is not the time the Eagles should make a move like this. If you argue that, I understand it. It's like you're looking at this team thinking, man, they might have been an offensive coordinator away in 2025. They might be an OC away in 2026. If you nail this hire and you have a lot of that talent back and you have that great defense, like this is a team that could very well be in the mix to win a Super Bowl next year. And you're pinning a lot of hopes on an inexperienced guy. So there's a ton of risk involved in this, but it kind of goes back to what I've said the last few weeks about the Nagy line. It's like the Mendoza line, right? Like you stack up those candidates, wherever Matt Nagy is, anyone that you were higher Nagy or below, it's worth taking a big swing. And I think there were a few big swings available in this process. I think Declan Doyle was one, Charlie Weiss Jr. was one, and I think Sean Mannion is another one. So I understand the process here.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. He'll be Jalen's 7th play caller as a pro and Nick's 5th offensive coordinator. And, I think one nice thing is they've lost 2 of their offensive coordinators and play callers to head coaching jobs. He's so young, it'd be hard for me to imagine, even if they do really well, that he'd be a head coaching candidate after 1 year at 32.
he's 33 now.
33. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's crazy though. But like Davis Webb's a head coach in Canada right now.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he'll either get fired or be a head coach somewhere. That's the pattern. I'm excited to see what it looks like. I'm excited to get to talk to him. I don't know when that'll be, but yeah, I feel good about this. There weren't many candidates out there that I think I would have felt good about.
Yeah, and like you start to think about the names that we went through, and this was a 2.5 week process that felt like it took 2 months, right? Just because there's all these names and you're watching other coaches get hired. I want to go through the other names that came out through this search, and I just want to get your take, like after we hear them, how many of those names you would feel much better about or worse about than Sean Mannion. So in no particular order here, and I'm getting a little nostalgic about my offensive coordinator search tracker that will no longer be updated. But some of the names here: Mike McDaniel, Brian Dable, Charlie Weiss, Zach Robinson, Bobby Slowick, Clayton Adams, Declan Doyle, Mike Kafka, Arthur Smith, Frank Smith, Gerard Johnson, Josh Grizzard, Jim Bob Cooter, Matt Nagy.
Yeah, I think the guys I would have felt better about are kind of Brian Dable, McDaniel. I don't think there's a ton of them that I feel significantly better about. Those two.
Yeah, I think those two, and for me, Bobby Slowick, I would have felt better about.
Yeah, he'd be the other one. But the other guys, not really.
Yeah, I think it's tough between Sean Mannion, Charlie Weiss, and Declan Doyle, just the three youngsters of the group. It's tough for me to distinguish them right now, but
I just don't know enough about them.
Yeah, and but like I like the idea of all three. I like the idea of trying to find the next great mind, and I think it got to a point where if you could I think Mike McDaniel was top on their list, right? He's the guy who kind of checked all the boxes of experience, but also creativity. And he was the guy to me that, like, if you had to rush and hire someone, you try to rush and hire that guy. When it was clear that he wasn't going to come here, I think that's when they took a step back and they really cast this wide net that led to 15 different names, a bunch of interviews. Like, I think that all of that got put into place once they realized they weren't getting that guy.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. And again, I don't think the fact that it took 2.5 weeks, or the fact that they talked to 15 guys or were linked to 15 guys, I don't see those as negatives. I think the only thing that matters is getting the right guy, no matter how long it takes, no matter how many people you talk to. The more people you talk to, the more you have a sense of who they are and what's out there and what's available. And if Sean Mannion came across the best out of that many people, I think it gives you a little confidence that they did their due diligence and they got a good guy.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, that a lot of their interviews are fact-finding missions. They want to know, hey, Mike McDaniel, how do you do this? Or, hey, Bobby Slowick, what's your philosophy on this element of football? And they might end up using some of that stuff. Or you end up talking to a Charlie Weiss Jr., and then maybe in 3 years you're looking for a head coach, and he's now the guy that you want to interview, and you already have that background. So there are a lot of reasons to go through a lengthy interview process, especially when there's not a reason to rush it. If you're going to get that top candidate, I think there is a reason to rush it. You want to make sure you lock him up, you don't let him go. If there's not that clear guy, I think it does make sense the way they've handled this.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And they're getting killed for how long it took and how many people they talked to. I don't know what the reaction is to Sean Mannion, but I think they handled the whole process in a pretty good way.
Yeah, look, I think that my big takeaway on the Mannion hire is that there is obvious risk, just obvious risk. But I think as I go through some of those names, like if they would have hired Matt Nagy, it's tough to get excited about that. If you're a fan base, it's tough to get excited about that. If you're a player, this guy who, yes, he has experience, but like when you're hiring someone, you can't be experienced no matter what, right? Like all experience doesn't mean you're good. It means that you've done something. You have to get experience if you're a young coach in this league.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Can I tell everyone a little bit about his background?
Yeah.
So he grew up in Northern California and set a bunch of records in high school. Went to Oregon State, and he broke the Pac-12 passing record set by former Eagles draft pick Matt Barkley. Threw for over 13,000 yards in college. His position coach was John Garrett, who's the older brother of Jason Garrett and Judd Garrett, who was on Eagles practice squad in 1990. He doesn't get drafted, but he signs with the Rams, and he was there with Sam Bradford, actually, our old friend Sam Bradford. His offensive coordinator, his first 2 years in the league, was Brian Schottenheimer, now head coach of the Cowboys, and his QB's coach for 2 years when he was with the Rams was Frank Signetti, who's obviously had incredible success at Indiana this year. So some interesting connections there. And he started one game, and it was a loss to the Packers, actually at Lambeau. A.J. Dillon scored 2 touchdowns in that game, so that's kind of cool. Current Eagle, I suppose you would call him. So then he goes to the Vikings, and his QB's coach was Clint Kubiak, and his offensive coordinator was Kevin Stefanski. So he's been around like so many really good minds. And he goes to Seattle and plays for Pete Carroll, backs up Russell Wilson. He was on the Seahawks practice squad at the same time as Jason Peters. So two legendary guys right there on the same practice squad, which is fun. I forgot that Jason Peters was on the practice squad. Maybe the only Hall of Famer ever to be on a practice squad. Possibly. I think Julio Jones was, I don't know if he's a Hall of Famer, but he was on the Eagles practice squad, I believe. But in any case, he's been around Russell Wilson and Jared Goff with the Rams, Stafford, Bradford, Jordan Love. So he's got some great connections, both guys who coached him that he learned from and guys he played with that he learned from.
Yeah. And, we talked about his 2 years coaching in the NFL. It's always tricky. Like we talked about this on a previous pod, like how do you weigh his experience as a player in the NFL? Like, and how do the Eagles weigh that as you're looking at a resume, you're trying to hire this guy? The 2 years of coaching, look, it stands out. That's a really small amount of time to be a coach in the league. The Eagles clearly care about his years playing too. This was in the quote from Nick Sirianni that the Eagles put out after the hire. I'll read part of the quote here. It was quickly apparent in the meeting with Sean that he is a bright young coach with a tremendous future ahead of him in this league. I was impressed by his systematic views on offensive football and his strategic approach. Sean's 11 years in the NFL have provided him a great opportunity to learn from and grow alongside some of the best coaches in the game. So there you have it. Like they combined his coaching and playing experience into 11 years in the NFL. So if you haven't had any questions about the way they're viewing his experience, I think that answered it there.
Yeah, that really struck me as well. I mean, they obviously are aware that people are going to, single out his lack of coaching experience. So that's kind of a way to work around that instead of saying in his 2 years as a coach, give him 11 years, including being on practice squads and bouncing around from the Rams to the Seahawks a few times and the Vikings. But he has been around the game a long time and around some really good minds. I mean, I just mentioned a few of them, but I do think there is value in that. And I thought Jordan Love had a pretty good year this year
very good year.
Very good year. I think he had the 6th highest passer rating in the league, like 101 and change. So, and
more than Jordan Love, every time they needed Malik Willis to play the backup in Green Bay, he's been great. I think sometimes that kind of tells you about a coach just as much as the starting quarterback is, like when that backup needed to play, how much he was able to give them too.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And yeah, he's really good. I mean, there were times where I was wondering if they might just go to him down the stretch, but he can't really do that. But he played great. And that is good. That's a reflection on Mannion. I'm sure that's something that came up in his interviews.
Yeah, and so most recently, obviously, the time under Matt LaFleur, has time with Sean McVay. So when we're talking about offensive concepts, I think it's fair to expect some of those. And I think that's a really good tree to be from. And we talked about it throughout this process. The Eagles interviewed a lot of coaches with connections to the Shanahan system. And whether it's McVay or LaFleur or Shanahan, look, it's almost tough to not interview those coaches because there's so many of them, but it did seem like they wanted someone from that world and they got someone.
Yeah, I think we know how Jeff Lurie thinks, and he's a guy that loves offensive football, and he studies it, and he knows where the best coaches are coming from, what tree. And he's not technically under that tree, but because he didn't coach under one of those guys, but he's I guess a branch.
Yeah, well, he's under LaFleur, who was under a Shanahan. You know what I mean? Like it kind of trickles down.
Yeah, so I think that was really important. We talked about that, I think, when this first opened up, that I really thought it was going to be somebody with those connections, and I'm not surprised it is.
You're right. It's not a super direct correlation, but it's there. And I think the fact that he's been under Matt LaFleur for a couple years, that tells you a little bit.
Yeah.
And the story of how we ended up with LaFleur is pretty cool. I'm sure you've read it. If listeners don't know it, he was still playing at this point. It was 2023, and Mannion was getting ready for an interview with the Bears, and he spoke with LaFleur over Zoom that just give his presentation and get any pointers on it. And LaFleur thought, man, this is really good. I think I want to hire this guy. And then he ends up hiring him.
Yeah, and if that story's familiar to anyone, I told it on the last podcast, which you apparently missed. But it's a cool story. He said,
I'm thinking there's probably some people who are going to listen to the emergency pod and not listen to the pod from before.
So. You asked me if I'd heard the story. I shared the story. But the cool part about it, he said, I was really surprised the Bears let him out of the building without hiring him. That's pretty high praise from a guy who's had a ton of success in the league.
Yeah, and it seems like Green Bay is not happy to lose him.
Yeah. Yeah, you can tell by what fans are saying on message boards and stuff and social media. He's pretty highly regarded there. And I don't think that's the case with all the people they interviewed.
I don't think so. And how do you think it works? We talked about like a young coach has to come in. They have to kind of command respect. They have to earn it, but they have to command it. How does this work now? You have a 33-year-old first-time offensive coordinator. He gets into a meeting room with Jalen Hurts. How does that go?
I think it starts out with saying, you're going to run more. He's got to prove he's got the football chops to be able to help Jalen Hurts. And I think very early in that meeting, he's going to have to illustrate how he's going to help Jalen Hurts become a more consistent, more productive player. And I think Jalen is the kind of guy that if he likes what he hears and he can relate to it, he'll buy in. I mean, we know he wants to get better. We know nobody works harder to get better than Jalen. But that's not an easy thing to do. I mean, Jalen's been in the league a long time. He's been a Super Bowl MVP. And if a guy comes in who's just a couple of years older than him, really, and doesn't have the game, doesn't have the, can't sit at a chalkboard or the whiteboard and illustrate, look, this is what we're going to do. Then it's not going to be a good start. He's got to show Jalen right from the start, I can help you become a better player.
I want to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to get your thoughts on a few more elements of this hire.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we've got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
Escape the cold and catch the Phillies in Clearwater with NBC Sports Philadelphia and Philly Sports Trips. We're teaming up to bring fans the most unforgettable Phillies spring training experience yet. The trip includes Phillies game tickets, beachfront accommodations, round-trip travel, all-inclusive tailgates, and more, plus appearances from Larry Boa, Charlie Manuel, and NBC Sports Philadelphia's own Ben Davis. Book your trip today at phillysportstrips.com.
And Dave, every time I see that ad and I see the palm trees and the beach, and the baseball sitting there, I just want to go. I just want to go down there like now.
I do too. I was in the office a couple of days ago. And we were talking about my travel going to Indianapolis for the combine and Clarkey going down to spring training. And I volunteered. I said, hey, if we want to, as a company, decide to flip that, I'll go down to Clearwater. John can go to Indy. I'm on board.
Did John approve of that?
John wasn't there.
Oh,
So
in absentia. John,
Yeah.
We have news for you.
Back on the Eagle Eye Podcast, brought to you by Nissan, Emergency Eagle Eye Podcast. Ruben, I want to get your take on something, and it was an idea I had back when I think we first heard about Declan Doyle or maybe Charlie Weiss, one of those early youngsters. I thought about, well, maybe the Eagles will bring in some sort of other veteran voice for the offensive coaching staff just to bolster the group a little bit and to kind of give a fail-safe in case the young coordinator we find out isn't really equipped to call plays. We don't know if they're done hiring. What do you think about that idea? Is there some validity to that thought process?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think in a way it could be perceived as a lack of confidence in Sean Mannion, like on the team. Well, they don't trust him to do the job, so they got to bring in this guy. I do think there will be other hires. I would assume guys like Scott Loeffler and Parks Frazier won't be on the staff. We don't know that, but I would think Sean wants to bring in his own quarterbacks coach and maybe a passing game coordinator. I don't think it's necessary to have like that veteran presence on the staff, just in case, as you said on the last pod, in case of offensive coordinator emergency, just break glass or whatever. I don't think that's necessary, and I think it could backfire if it kind of compromises his leader. The fact that they're hiring him tells you how much confidence they have, how much they believe in him and his system. And I think if you bring somebody in to kind of babysit or whatever you want to call it, I think it could be taken the wrong way.
Yeah, and it might not work. We saw that in 2023. They hired Sean Desai as a defensive coordinator, and they had Matt Patricia in case something went wrong, and Matt Patricia made things worse. So there's no guarantee. But I don't know. I think we've also seen them have other offensive consultants. Jim Bob Cooter was one of them in 2021. They had Marty Morningweg as a wise old owl in the building for a while. Like I think that there's a way to do this if there's a coach available who makes sense that could help. Yeah,
I think if it's somebody that Sean Mannion has a good relationship with and can work with, and if he's adding to what Sean's bringing to the table, maybe he's an expert on red zone or third down or whatever. I'm okay with it. I just don't think it's necessary, and I think it should be somebody that Sean is good with and signs off on if it does happen.
Let's talk about Nick Sirianni a little bit, because I think one of the fears that has kind of popped up during this coaching search is that he will not give this next coordinator full autonomy. He'll be involved in the offense in some ways. And I think the fear is maybe exacerbated by having a younger offensive coordinator, that maybe Nick will feel the need to be more involved in the offense. Do you think there's a fear here?
Well, I think it's natural to be concerned about that. I think it was Jacina Anderson reported that all the candidates are being reassured that it won't happen, and in a very in a very convincing way that Nick will stay out of it. But yeah, if things go wrong and he starts, I can't think of the word, but
Meddling.
Thank you. I mean, it's always going to be a concern with Nick because, I think he's done it. I mean, he's done it before, and he's an offensive head coach who's got a lot of ideas about offense, and a lot of them don't work. So some of them do, but I would be concerned about it if I was coming in, and it could be one of the reasons some candidates didn't want the job or withdrew or just weren't interested in the first place. But I think if it's working and it's going well, you hope that Nick would be smart enough to just stay away and let him do his thing.
Yeah, and it gets back to the conversation we had during the search was like how attractive is this job? And I think one of the downsides is that there's probably some oversight from the head coach who's an offensive mind, but the upside's so great too. Like the last 3 guys they hired externally have become head coaches. So my view on it the whole time was that it was still an attractive job. Some of the results maybe kind of didn't show that the whole way, but ultimately it doesn't really matter.
No, it doesn't. And I really think when I started researching him, I think when we first heard his name, it was my turn to do the story. And I started kind of finding quotes about him and researching his past and who he's been around. I was really impressed. And he kind of became the guy I was hoping would get the job that night last week when I started kind of looking into his career, who he's been around and what he's done, his 11-year career, coaching / playing career. So I think they got a good guy. You never know. I thought Kevin Petullo was going to be terrific. I was wrong. But considering who was available, I like this hire.
I'm looking forward to actually hearing from him at some point and learning a little bit more about his philosophies. Anything else that we didn't hit on this emergency pod that you want to talk about?
Well, I just hope we have a chance to talk to him fairly soon. The Eagles aren't known for presenting new hires to the media and consequently to the fans very promptly. So hopefully we can go down there and talk to him about football in the near future. Yeah,
that'd be great. This was just an emergency Eagle Eye podcast. Plenty of stuff in the normal pod. So if you haven't listened to that, if you skipped ahead and you don't want to hear about all the coordinator stuff, that's fine. We also ran through the 10 most disappointing Eagles of the 2025 season. So we had a good back and forth discussion there as well. Emails, if you want to email us, eagleeye@nbcuni.com, QR code on the screen. We also answered emails in that last pod, so plenty of reasons to check that one out. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button and subscribe there as well. Rube, any final thoughts?
Just that Sean Mannion's nickname at Oregon State was Machine. And he got it when one of the coaches, it was actually John Garrett, they were in a meeting with the team, with the offense, and they were watching film of the previous game. And I guess Mannion was really accurate in that game. He was like 19 for 23. And he said, look at this, he's a machine. And the offensive lineman immediately adopted that as his nickname and started calling him that, and it stuck. And when he would walk by like an offensive lineman or somebody on the offense, they'd start walking like a robot. And so I think his first presser, we call him the Machine, and probably be off to a good start.
I like that. All right. For Reuben Frank, I'm Dave Zangaro. This has been an Emergency Eagle Eye podcast brought to you by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.